Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Double Play. Today, we are joined by Sam Luckini to talk some Yankees. We're doing our Yankees season prediction, our season preview, rather. We're going to recap their offseason and look forward to their 2023 season. Thank you, Sam, for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. It's a blast to be here. This is kind of what I do all day, every day is talk Yankees. So I'll keep the train going. I'll keep it going. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great, and let's get right into the Yankees. And they were maybe the busiest team this offseason when it comes to the big fish. They bring back Aaron Judge, the AL MVP from last year, who had one of the best seasons we've ever seen. And they go big fishing again for Carlos Rodon, the former San Francisco Giant and Chicago White Sox, who many believe was one of the best starting pitchers on the market, maybe the best, above Jacob deGrom. And then they also bring back Anthony Rizzo. They bring in Tommy Kahnle, and there weren't too many guys that left. You have Andrew Benintendi, Jameson Taillon, Matt Carpenter, Chad Green, Aroldis Chapman, who'd been there for a while, and then Miguel Castro and Lucas Luetge. Overall, Sam, very big. I would assume that as a Yankees fan, you're happy with the guys that they brought back and the guys they brought in. But for you, whether it was an addition or a subtraction, what do you think was the biggest move of the offseason?
For sure. I mean, when you can bring in a fish like Rodon, really, that's just kind of uncomparable when you really look at it. You're basically adding to a strength. This was a team that was, incredible last year with their starting rotation. We're talking about a guy like Garrett Cole who had a poor down year last year, but he ended up breaking the all-time Yankees single-season strikeout leader last year. I think it's 257, I think, that he clipped last year. But he had a 3.5 ERA. He was poor, from his standard at least. I mean, Nestor Cortez Jr. really broke out last year and was incredible. And then you add Carlos Rodon into this mix. This is the best, 1-2-3, one of the best 1-2-3 punches they are going to see in MLB. You're out there talking about, one of the strongest rotations in baseball, with the likes of the New York Mets, cross-out rival. That's going to be a really cool thing we're going to see this year. And now you're in a position where, Luis Severino, who was your ace, 3-4 years ago, is now your four guy. And now that, we see Frankie Montas going down with the shoulder thing, he's going to have shoulder surgery or whatever. That was a guy that you traded for to be your two. A couple months later, it's your situation where that's going to be your five coming into the season. So adding to the strength is incredible. Obviously, bringing back Judge was a huge add because, realistically, if you lose that guy, you lose 12 wins. He was an 11.7 F4 player last year. You're losing a huge part of the team. And then, as far as the losses go, I thought that I really would have liked to see a full year of Andrew Benintendi with the Yankees. And then I absolutely love Matt Carpenter. And for me, being able to see Aroldis Chapman walk is happy. That's happy thoughts for me because I've seen him blow so many goddamn games over the past couple of seasons. So I'm perfectly okay with that. I will definitely miss Chad Green. That's a guy that I'll miss. And then, another ad was Tommy Kahnle, and I thought that he was going to come back and be sick, but he's now dealing with some, something with his bicep or something. So he's going to miss the first month of the season, which is kind of unfortunate. But that's a guy that you gave $6 million a year. So it was an interesting offseason. Obviously, we added to the biggest fish, and I'm super excited about the ads. Some of the subtractions I'm a little bit upset about, but I can live with that. So it's pretty solid all around for me.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and kind of tail off there. I ended up going with Rodon as the biggest one as well. Because like you said, it makes the rotation probably potentially the best in baseball, and its ceiling is definitely the best in baseball. And I think I didn't go Judge here, and I think Jack's going to talk about Judge because Judge did make their lineup better, and it was a kind of a signing and a re-signing rather that we thought was necessary for the Yankees. But with Rodon, they kind of needed him, I think, because if you look at the lineup as a whole, it's good. I wouldn't say it's elite like it has been the Yankees lineup this year, but it's got the potential to be. But with the rotation kind of maybe carrying the load, I guess you can say, it puts them right back to where they've been in recent years, right atop that division as a potential World Series threat. And so I think Rodon maybe meant more to on the field, even though it was a strength. I think it solidifies them as being the best, among the best in baseball, with a guy like Rodon, who was in the Cy Young conversation the last two seasons. So when you add someone like that, I think you can't really understate the value that that's going to bring over 162. And then once you get into a short playoff series as well, I mean, you mentioned they brought in Montas to be the 2 last season, and now he's going to be the 5. And when you're going into a potentially 5-game series or even a 7-game series, when you face Cole and Rodon for the first 2 in a 5-game series and potentially twice in a 7-game series if you get that far, that's going to be a big boost than having than being that two be a Montas or a Nestor Cortez, who are both great pitchers, but I think Rodon, the addition to that, is going to be very important over the course of 162 and then in the postseason as well.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Aaron Judge. The way I looked at it, I mean, well, either or works for me as the biggest add, but if I were to look and say if they only got one of them, would I rather that one have been Judge or Rodon? I think you got to go with Aaron Judge. For A, he had one of the best seasons we've ever seen last year. He's easily a top 3 player in the game right now. If you want to put him one, I don't fault you considering how good he was last season. You're locking him up probably for the rest of his career. You also add just what he means to the city of New York and being one of the homegrown players that's just gone on and led the Yankees for so many years. And if I was thinking about it, the lineup I thought was going to be kind of weak without Aaron Judge. Now, I like some of the guys they have, but it's certainly a lot different when it doesn't have Aaron Judge in it. And we saw that even with Judge, that's their biggest problem in the playoffs is they just don't hit as well as they do in the regular season. So if you're rolling into the playoffs and you've gotten through the season and you made the postseason and the big fish in your lineup are maybe Giancarlo Stanton if he's healthy, you've got Anthony Rizzo, and Ryan and I both like Gleyber Torres, but there's no anchor. I feel like it's a lot of good players, but Judge is really what brings it all together, and he's clearly the best hitter on the team. So I went with Aaron Judge just because I know Rodon added to his strength and made you better, but I think we were going to look at this Yankees lineup a lot different if Judge wasn't back, and a lot of people didn't think he was going to be back. So good on them for being able to bring back one of the best talents that they've produced ever.
Yeah, I can agree with both points here because when you have Rodon now, we saw in the playoffs last year that rotation kind of got beat down. You saw Nestor, who struggled with injuries. He was the guy that had thrown out of the bullpen for the majority of his career. And then you get towards the back half of the season, he went on the IL for a little bit. And then the last playoff game that he pitched in Game 4 of the ALCS, he literally got injured. So now you're able to throw out that just unstoppable 4-headed monster in the playoff series, which gives you just extreme advantages. And you're talking about, this is the Yankees team that's going to go deep, and they're going to see the Houston Astros. This Houston Astros team did lose Justin Verlander. While I still think that they are the best team in the American League by far, I think that, replacing Hunter Brown with Justin Verlander doesn't 100% translate out. They're still going to be a better team. I still 1,000% think that the Astros are a better team, but this now allows you to be able to compete with the Houston Astros. And back to the Aaron Judge point, I think that the Yankees 1 through 5, I think is incredible. I think when you're able to throw out Judge, Stanton, Rizzo, Gleyber, DJ LeMahieu, those kind of guys, I think that's incredible. But that bottom 4 of, Trevino, who's strictly there to play defense, Donaldson, who's washed, who the hell knows who's going to play shortstop. That bottom 4 is just really weak. And like both of you guys said, they could not hit in the playoffs to save their goddamn lives. So if you take Aaron Judge out of that lineup, what does that team do? I don't think it does absolutely anything on the field. So I like both of your perspectives on these moves. I think both of those answers were perfect.
And before we move into a grade real quick, I'm going to digress here. Speaking of shortstop, are you on the Volpe for starting shortstop opening day train?
You know what? It's interesting. It's a good question because we haven't gotten to see a lot of Peraza. I think Peraza's dealing with an ankle thing. He's going to play tomorrow, I think, which will be nice. He hasn't played over the past week. But Volpe's been killing it, man. And at the same token, you're looking at single A, double A pitching right now, and that's what he's facing. So I think that we'll see sort of a separation once we get towards the latter stages of camp. Obviously, Oswald Peraza had some time in AAA and then in the bigs last year, and even in the playoffs. So I feel like we're going to see sort of that competition. I think that they 1,000% need to move the $6 million that I can't episode this year, 100%. It should not be him at all. But I think, one of the two, I would love to see Volpe start. I think that would be really cool. But at the same token, I don't know then what you do with Peraza. Who the hell knows? But I would love for Volpe to be the starting shortstop this year. I don't think it's going to happen just because service time manipulation and that kind of stuff. And I think they'll just end up rolling with Peraza, at least to start. And if they deal with an infield injury, maybe they'll pull up Volpe eventually. But I want to see them roll with Volpe, but I think they roll with Peraza. So,
do you think either of those two prospects could be groomed in the future to play third base? Maybe you're looking at a life past Donaldson, which who knows could be this season or next.
Yeah, so that's another good point. My biggest thing with this season, what I really want them to do is I want them to play DJ LeMahieu at third base and just bench Josh Donaldson because I think that bat has just completely digressed. His max exit velocities are terrible. His average exit velocity is just cooked. He played great defense, and people rave about Josh Donaldson's DRS total, which was 7 last year, and it was among one of the best in baseball. And I want to see he played about 900 innings at third base. Josh Donaldson did last year. DJ LeMahieu played 300 innings at third base last year. He had the same amount of DRS at third base as Josh Donaldson in 600 less innings. So while I think that, Josh Donaldson, there's the potential that we could look at a 38, year old bounce back season from Josh Donaldson, I don't think it's going to happen. I think they should roll out DJ LeMahieu every single day at third base. But in the future, to answer your question, I think that a guy like Peraza, who is more skilled defensively, could end up moving to third base, having Volpe be the shortstop full time. And then I think they should run with Gleyber Torres, man. I think Gleyber Torres is a great bat over at second base. So I think that those three guys should anchor your infield for the future. And then obviously we'll see what happens with Rizzo. I really like Andres Chaparro, who's down the minors as well. So we'll see if he ends up becoming the first baseman at some point. But I think that those three guys should anchor your infield for the near future, essentially.
Absolutely. I mean, I kind of agree with you there. I think Volpe is going to be the future for me, at least. I like what I've seen from him. And Gleyber, I mean, Jack and I just had our fantasy baseball draft the other day. We were both going after him, and we believe in Gleyber. And it's clear, I mean, Gleyber also wants to be in New York, which so sometimes you can't say about all players. New York not everyone's built for New York. So Gleyber's a guy who enjoys that. So I agree with you. Those three should be the future of the infield. But moving on to kind of what the grade is, Sam, you can go ahead and start us off. What would you give the Yankees grade this offseason?
I would give it a B flat. I think a B flat is fair. Obviously, I think that, you bringing back Judge, I think should be the expectation. I think it takes it above average with you signing Rodon, so that takes it up to a B. But the only issue that I have with this offseason is that this lineup didn't get any better. Obviously, you bring back Judge, he's the exact same player, if not worse. Obviously, we're not going to expect a 62 home run season from this guy every single year. But at the same token, you didn't bring in a left fielder. We're not really sure what's going to go on out there. If you want to add in the additions of the prospects, I think that makes it a little bit interesting, once you see a Volpe or Peraza come up and play shortstop. But realistically, there's still questions with these bats. We don't know what's going to happen at third base. We don't know if they're going to roll Donaldson or LeMahieu. We don't know what's going to happen at left field. There's 4 different guys, realistically, that they could put out there. They could run with Willie Calhoun or Rafael Ortega or Oswaldo Cabrera or Aaron Hicks. Who knows what's going to happen? Shortstop's still up in the air. And realistically, I keep it at a B, probably leaning towards a B+, strictly because this lineup did not get any better than what it did last year. Obviously, you had Rodon, but the lineup is still the exact same lineup that lost to the Houston Astros in 4 games.
I guess, yeah, I can go. I've only given out 1 A, and I haven't given out any A pluses, and I wanted to the Yankees just because they got those 2 bigs, but for some of the guys that they lost, if they could have brought those guys back on smaller deals, those are the kind of deals that build those very high grades. So if they had brought back a Benintendi or a Matt Carpenter, just to make me feel a little bit better about the lineup, or added someone in the lineup, I could have gone much higher. I'm going to stay at an A, though. I think I'm going to end up with probably just the 2 New York teams with the only A's, because I am also factoring in they are going to let the young guys play. And I'm a believer in Cabrera and Peraza and Volpe potentially. I like that they are filling out the big spots where they're bringing in Judge, they're bringing in Rodon, but they're also allowing for the talent below them to grow and have some hope coming into the year. So they're not making things too complicated in certain spots, but I agree with you that there are certain limitations when they didn't get any better offensively, at least when you're adding players to certain spots. So I'm going to stick with an A because I am factoring in some of those others. But I mean, really, it's Judge and Rodon that really bolster the offseason for me.
Yeah, I was the same way. I was surprised that you wouldn't be. I went A as well. The only other one I gave to was the Mets, just because, like Jack mentioned, you add Rodon and keep Judge, probably the 2 biggest free agents in all of free agency this season. So you get that, and yeah, you don't make the lineup better than it was last year, but I think you can look to, they are still the team that won the AL East, and they're still gonna run that out. And like you said, the Astros lose Verlander, and So yeah, you got swept by them last year. Yeah, you're the same team. But I think this team has still the potential to beat the Astros, and adding Rodon adds in the factor that I mentioned a little bit earlier of you can roll those 2 out twice, Cole and Rodon, that is, twice a series. And so I think while the lineup didn't get any better from the team that got swept last season, I think the team got closer, or at least more likely compete, because we know that in a playoff series anything can happen. I used to see with the Phillies last year, but with the Yankees and Astros, I mean, Astros obviously kind of dominated that over the last few years. The head-to-head series, that is. So I think the Yankees are kind of at the point now where they're at least within the striking distance of anything can happen with the additions that they added, and keeping Rizzo and Judge. So maybe you look to a trade deadline piece now this upcoming season to hopefully put you over that edge. But for now, I like this offseason getting those top two guys. I went with an A.
Yeah, I totally understand what you guys are saying. And maybe it's just the spoiled Yankees brat in me, just, wanting more. But, personally, if the one guy that I wanted to see them bring back was Andrew Benintendi, like we've been talking about, this team can't hit in the playoffs. This was a guy that was hitting 330 at the All-Star break last year, ended up hitting damn near 300 with the team, after he came over. Obviously had the hamate bone injury, whatever, but that was just another guy that was just, a contact profile bat that you just need in those playoff series. That's why we've missed DJ LeMahieu so much in those types of playoff series. So I think if they made a move like that, I think I would push it to an A. I do like that you mentioned trade deadline, because I do think that they probably go after an outfield bat at the trade deadline. And I think the one guy I think they look at is Ian Happ with the Chicago Cubs. I think that would be a really interesting play to see where Chicago's at, because with Chicago, I'm really interested to see how they do this year, because that Central is really just one of the weaker divisions of baseball. They kind of bolstered up on these, not necessarily mediocre free agents, but just guys that are really, pushing for a bounce back. Eric Hosmer and Cody Bellinger, and I hope that Seiya Suzuki has another great second year. And then Ian Happ is a big part of what they have going on in Chicago out there. But if they're, in a position kind of like they were last year where they're going to end up selling, I think that Ian Happ would be perfect for this Yankees team. I wanted him to, come to the Bronx last year. Instead of Andrew Benintendi, even though I still ended up falling in love with Andrew Benintendi, I think that Ian Happ could be a perfect fit for the New York Yankees at the trade deadline.
I think there's a lot of teams that have outfielders too, that who knows if they're going to end up trading people at the trade deadline. Like, I could see the White Sox, if it's not working out again, realize that this is not their window, and they've got, a bevy of outfielders to choose from. You could think about the Diamondbacks if they're not where they want to be. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. is a free agent, I believe, after this season, and he doesn't exactly fit the young core that they're building. I know they just traded for him, but they might want to see what they can get out of him. There's a lot of teams that I think can possibly move on from people if they are middling. You look at guys like the teams like the Milwaukee Brewers, I wouldn't be surprised if they move similarly to the Cubs. So even Brian Reynolds as a possibility from the Pirates. There's a lot of outfielders out there, and there were some good ones last year, but I think this year could be an even bigger time, and maybe that's what the Yankees are waiting for as well.
Yeah, I guess that I can kind of turn us to looking forward to what to expect this season. I know I've been praising the Yankees this whole time and their roster that they're bringing back, but And maybe this is me putting false faith in the Blue Jays again. I mean, I did it last year. The spoiler alert. But I've got the Yankees going second in the division. Is what kind of what to expect / bold prediction a little bit. And I still think they're going to be among the top in the wild card. But it comes down to more of my faith in the Blue Jays rather than not having faith in the Yankees. So that's kind of what I'm expecting from the Yankees this year, and I could fully see them proving me wrong like they did last year as well, but they definitely will be back in the postseason.
Yeah, so it's interesting you talk about this false hope with the Blue Jays, because I was on the exact same train. What I did, my AL East predictions last year, I said the Yankees finishing third in that division, surprisingly.
As did I.
I had the Blue Jays finishing first. I had the Tampa Bay Rays finishing second in that division, and then the Yankees at 3, surprisingly enough. So, and while I do think that the Blue Jays will kick up from last year, I think that another year of that, this core growing, and I think that outfield got way better defensively. I think bringing in a guy like Kevin Kiermaier was huge. And then Dalton Varsho, I think, was a huge add for them as well. I think it's going to be very, very tight between these two teams this year. I really think it's a two-horse race for this division. I do think that the Yankees are going to end up pulling out and winning, 97, 98 games. And I think the Blue Jays will be, right there at 96, 97. I think it'll be like one or two games that end up splitting these two teams. I do think that the Yankees will win the division, but it's not going to be easy. It is not going to be easy. This Blue Jays team is serious. They're young, and they will cook. I'm telling you guys, this Blue Jays team is going to be serious this year.
Well, you need to convince Ryan. Ryan thinks that they're gonna go to the World Series. So, I'm gonna tell you though, Sam. I do think that the Yankees still win the division this year. The Blue Jays might end up going further in the playoffs. I haven't decided that yet, but I still think the Yankees are built to sustain an 162 game season because I love the depth in their rotation. I still think the bullpen is better than the Blue Jays, which is often such an overlooked aspect of baseball, where you can fall in love with a lineup or a starting rotation, but it's what about those last two guys in the bullpen who have to pitch in game 3 of a series in which all the great relievers already pitched in the first couple games? Like, those are the games that eventually stack up and win you a division. So I think the Yankees are going to win the division still, but I'm predicting them, or not, I would say like what to expect is they're going to have maybe the best rotation in baseball, but I still think their batting lineup is going to be volatile. I think on a day where Judge doesn't homer, and you need production or a big hit in a rally from one of those guys at the bottom of the lineup, even though they're young and maybe have a lot of potential, it's not going to work out all the time for the Yankees. And so I could see them having those stretches where for 1 month they're the best hitting team in the league, and the next month they're near the bottom and people are starting to clown them again. But I think eventually, as the wave evens out, they're going to win the division, mostly because I think the rotation is going to be steady throughout. So I think the Yankees are going to be right up there near 100 wins again. I think they're going to win the AL East, and then I think for them it's just hope that they will hit the ball in the playoffs, because they haven't done anything to push themselves towards that outside of, patience, but it's going to break one of these years, I think, because, the Yankees, they've got so many great players. It has to work out at some point. And we'll see whether that's the year, but I think they're in the playoffs. I think that they are probably going to win the AL East, and I think they're going to have one of the best rotations in the league.
And then we can move on to bold predictions here. I'll go ahead and start this one off. This was a team where I didn't know where to go for my bold prediction, because sometimes I go team, like if I have a team in the World Series or something, I'll go that way. But this is a team that, like the Yankees, I could see them prove me wrong, like I said, for getting the division. So I ended up going with, I think the Yankees are going to have 5+ All-Stars on their team. I think you look at Judge, Rodon, and probably Cole are 3 locks. And then I could see Harrison Bader being an All-Star. I could see Jose Trevino being an All-Star again. Stanton was an All-Star last year. You can even look at the bullpen for a few other names, like a Clay Holmes. So I think 5+ All-Stars, maybe it's not bold enough, but I think that's my prediction for the Yankees this season.
Yeah, I really like that you just mentioned Bader. I would like to tap on him for just a second. He set a career high in stolen bases last year at 17. He only played 89 games. Obviously, these bigger bases are really going to help with stolen back. We've seen it in spring training. I feel like these dudes are just flying around the field like it's nobody's business. That is another guy that I could, potentially see grabbing 30 bags with a full season. Obviously, it's very contingent on health because he's a player that, hasn't particularly stayed healthy throughout the course of his career. But I'm glad that you just mentioned Bader being an All-Star. I think that's a really interesting take. And, it's a legitimate possibility with the potential that he has. And so I have 2 here. I have like bold and then like really, really bold. Like it's like never going to happen. Bold, I'll go Anthony Volpe comes up and I think he finishes top 3 in Rookie of the Year voting and AL Rookie of the Year voting. I think that the impact that he can make on this team would be generational. Obviously flipping from, seeing IKF last year and, whatever we've seen at the shortstop position ever since Derek Jeter left. Didi Gregorius was a solid addition for, a multitude of years, but he was obviously never going to live up to the standard of Derek Jeter. But I think that, this kid is like genuinely just like the chosen one. And I think that he can really come up and make a serious impact with this team. And this is, my really, really, really bold take. It's something that I put out there personally. And it was just like straight up hot take. I said that Giancarlo Stanton could hit 50 home runs. That's if he stays healthy. Giancarlo Stanton never stays healthy. So, you can bank on him playing like 120, 130 games and hitting 35 home runs. But him playing 160, he can hit 50. So my really, really bold take is that Stanton hits 50. That's my favorite player. So it's probably just a little bit of bias, but there you go. That's mine.
I wouldn't be surprised, like maybe if he doesn't get to 50, but if him and Judge combine for 100. Because, Judge is 62, so
Yeah.
That would
I
be
like that one. I was gonna. I almost went with the Volpe for top 3 in rookie of the year, and the only reason I didn't was because we don't know when he's going to be called up, and then also there's just so many rookies I like in the American League. We just talked about the Orioles yesterday with Gunnar Henderson, Grayson Rodriguez, and then Hunter Brown too. I think that I could see that one happening. I like that prediction, but I didn't have the balls to do it.
I think yeah, because
you got to do it.
You don't know when he's going to come up yet, so I'm gonna hold the brakes on that. I think he can. I mean, he's got the talent. For me, I'm going bold, and Ryan knew this one was coming. I'm a Giants fan, fell in love with Carlos Rodon last year, and being able to watch all of his starts, you start to understand why people are talking about the expected stats. And I'm just going to straight up say it. I think Carlos Rodon emerges as the ace of the Yankees by the end of the year, and I think he wins the AL Cy Young. He had the single best expected ERA in all of baseball last year, the single best FIP in all of baseball last year among qualified starters, the single best K per nine. Like, you see where I'm going. He was, I think, when you're talking about expected stats as well as some of the more nuanced stats among qualified starters, the best starting pitcher in baseball, second in WAR behind Aaron Nola. And then you compare him to Justin Verlander, who did win the Cy Young last year, more innings pitched, a better expected ERA, a better FIP, expected FIP, WAR, and strikeouts per nine. He's going to be on the Yankees now, so he's going to get far more attention than he did on the Giants. And I think that with Cole, who had not struggled, but to his standards hasn't been up to what he was in Houston, or at least his first couple of years in New York, giving up the home runs, I think that Rodon's going to emerge as the ace. I wouldn't be surprised if come playoff time they want to throw him game one, and I think he wins the Cy Young.
Yeah, I absolutely love that take. I genuinely just want to thank you so much for that take because I absolutely love it. I just fell in love with it. I think it's gorgeous. The only thing that scares me with Rodon is his home run to fly ball rate, which is the only concerning thing about Carlos Rodon pitching in Yankee Stadium. That is the only thing, because that's what's bit, Garrett Cole in the butt for so many years in Yankee Stadium. We gave up 38 home runs last year, and that's why his ERA just skied. But I absolutely love that take. I think that's incredible. That's probably spot on, and I think it's a thing that probably does happen. Not like he could win the Cy Young, but I think he does become the ace. Genuinely, I think he does become the Yankees ace by year's end.
Yeah, I mean, watching a lot of Rodon, he gave up a lot of home runs at the end of the year last year, and a lot of them were weak. He gave up a couple to the Diamondbacks. I think there was one game where he gave up 2 or 3 where they were just wall scrapers, and you're like, how did that ball get out? And so with the MLB towards the end of the year last year messing with the baseballs, I think that didn't help him at all. So I think seeing that where he didn't give up many before when everyone's saying the balls were dead, and then gave up more towards the end of the year, as opposed to a guy like Cole who was kind of routinely giving them up over the last 2 years throughout the entire season. That's why I think that maybe it's not as big of a part of Rodon's game as it is for Cole.
And before we finish this one out, I've got one more kind of off-topic question for you, Sam. For some reason, I'm on Yankees Twitter. I always see suggested Yankees tweets, and it seems like at least the accounts that are suggested to me, it'll be like Kiner Falefa has a bad batting practice round, and Twitter will be freaking out or something crazy like that. So from expectations wise, I know obviously you want the Yankees to win a World Series, but say the Yankees beat the Astros in the playoffs and lose in the World Series or something. Is that a disappointment of a year, or are you happy with that?
No, I'm excited because we finally climbed the mountain. We finally, slayed the beast. That's the biggest thing. Realistically, if they end up going against, the Padres or the Dodgers in the World Series and they lose, okay, so we lost to the National League team, but we finally got past the ALCS. It's been 10 years. I would be ecstatic. They could lose the World Series, and obviously I would be completely crushed. It would be terrible for me. But at the same token, they beat the Astros. So who the hell cares? They did it. Thank God. So, yeah, I would not consider that a failure of a season. I would call that a success of a season if they beat the Astros.
That was like me. I go to TCU, so going to the national championship and losing 65-7 obviously sucked. But I was like, I don't care. We were in the national championship.
It's a crusher. Yeah, it sucks.
I wouldn't consider even last year a disappointment for the Yankees because I know they still ended up losing to the Astros at the end, but I think that you gotta, as a fan of a team who's been up and who has been down, you just be happy when you're in the playoffs and you're winning the division. Like that's something to celebrate, as well as, I mean, you had the Rays running the AL East for a while, and so for the Yankees to get back right on top, and we all three, like we mentioned, had the Yankees coming in third in our preseason predictions. They end up winning the division, and it wasn't super close. So I still think last year was a success, but it is easy to look at things in a vacuum and realize you get swept by the Astros, and they are just they're beating you down every time you come against them in a playoff series. So that's the one thing I will point out. But I do think that 2022 was still a success for the Yankees. All right. Well,
I think that's all we have for today. Thank you, Sam, for joining us. It's always exciting to talk a big market team that's going to be in competing for a World Series. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you to everyone for watching. Make sure you comment down below what you think of the Yankees season this year, and make sure you like the video. Subscribe for more baseball content. Thank you, Sam, for joining us. We've been Double Play. We'll see you guys next time.